From WXXI News, this is Connections. I'm Raquel Stephen. Our connection this hour was made in the mid-20th century from the 1940s through the 1960s. Clarissa Street in Rochester's 3rd Ward was alive with music, food, and family. It was a place where neighbors looked out for each other and where the legendary Pythodd, is it Pythodd? Am I saying it right? Pythodd Jazz Club drew national stars to a small corner of our city. But like so many vibrant neighborhoods across America, Clarissa Street was uprooted by urban renewal and the construction of crisscrossing highways that cut through the community. People were displaced, businesses shut down, and the community was forever changed. But today, the story of Clarissa Street still lives on. And not just in our memory. Every summer, former residents, their families, and new generations gather to celebrate its history at the Clarissa Street Reunion. And in 2025, as cities across the country continue to wrestle with questions of equity, housing, and how to rebuild trust in our communities, remembering this history matters more than ever. This year marks the 27th Clarissa Street Reunion, and joining us are some of the people keeping this memory alive. Renee Dexter Long is the president of the Clarissa Street Legacy. I have Patricia Mason Williams. She's the vice president. George Fontenette. He's an elder and a member of the finance committee. And I believe little later on, Bryce Long, which Renee's son, will be joining us to talk about the next generation and how they're keeping this legacy alive. And like always, we welcome you to join us in this conversation. Our listeners, call us at 1-844-295-TALK. That's 1-844-295-8255 or at 585-263-9994. Or email us at connections@wxxi.org, or you can comment right in our YouTube channel. Now, I like to start by saying I'm not originally from Rochester. Okay, I came here in 2005, but I've done some research, and I'm excited to have this conversation. And I'm also going to be a student. Okay, so whatever you tell me, this is my first time hearing it, and I'm excited to hear about Rochester's history, especially Clarissa Street, because that's when I came here, that's one of the things that we had to attend. A Clarissa Street Festival. All right. That was a big deal. You got to go to Clarissa Street Festival. So I'm excited to hear about this Corgent's history. Now, George, I want to start with you. As the elder, what was it like on Clarissa Street in his heyday?
Okay, well, first of all, you said festival.
Oh, I knew he was going to
You
know what? Let me tell you something. If he did not get you, I was going to be like, wait a minute. Because we get put in our place. We are not allowed to call it a festival.
And this is one of my questions on here. Like, okay, is the festival reunion? Oh, go ahead, George. Check me on this.
Well, it's a reunion.
Yes.
And it's a reunion of all. It started off in 1996 with a group of former Clarissa Street residents greeting a friend who came to town. So they were walking down Clarissa Street reminiscing about the past. There was one club that was still open at the time called Chef's Paradise. And so they left Chef's, started walking down the street, and started reminiscing about the street dances that we used to have on Clarissa Street. Yeah. And then they started talking. And then sooner or later, one of them said, why don't we try to do it again, have a street dance? And they said, well, it's no more street to have a dance at, because we had 2 parking lots, because RIT was down on Clarissa Street at the time. Oh. And they had 2 parking lots. They were closed on the weekends. And they allowed different organizations to use the parking lots for street dances. So that's where the street dance came in at. And so subsequently, this group started calling other people. They sat down, got together, and decided to have a reunion. Mm-hmm. And they talked to the city, they got funding, and I wasn't a part of it then, because all the members that were doing this right now are in their late 80s and 90s. And so now we got a whole new group of people who are moving things forward.
Yes.
And so anyway, so that's how the reunion started. And we try to keep it going. I'm probably the last of the old crew that is on there. We have a whole new group of young talent who are pushing us to the next level. And I'm enjoying every minute of it.
Okay, so the reunion is not the festival.
There is no festival.
There is no festival.
It's a festival, but it's a reunion.
So let me put it to you this way.
Okay.
Like he said, it was meant to bring back, the inhabitants, the people who enjoyed that neighborhood. So instead of calling it a festival, they only call it a reunion.
Yeah.
And that's it, because it's about family, it's about the community, it's about bringing people together. Whereas you can have the Park Avenue Festival or you can have the Cornhill Festival, but ours is a reunion. It's bringing everybody back, generations and generations and generations. Just like you said recently, my son, I'm trying to bring him aboard, right? All of my boys, because we understand that this is about community and it's about family.
Yeah. And if it was up to George, I believe it would be called the Clarissa Street Dance.
Probably so. Yeah, probably
Originally.
Now, George, as an elder, right? You grew up on Clarissa Street in its heyday. Tell me about that. How was it growing up?
Yeah, I actually grew up on Favorite Street, which is off of Troop, which is right around the corner from Favorite Street. And growing up in that area, I tell the story that we had everything. We had funeral parlors to start off with. We had 2 hospitals. We had schools that were in walking distance. We had different bars and restaurants, hairdressers, pool rooms, gas stations. We had it all within walking distance. And so at the time, I was a young kid. We knew everybody from the neighborhood. We were a predominantly black neighborhood, but it was also white people lived there, Jewish people lived in the area, Italians. As a matter of fact, my next door neighbor was an Italian lady. And they were all uprooted around the same time that we were.
Yeah.
And again, the neighborhood is very special to a lot of people because that's where we spent all our time at. And so we sit down and we reminisce about it, and then we think about the Pythodd, you say, and that was a rite of passage for a lot of us when we were old enough to get in there to see the music that we always would stand outside on the corner to listen to. So it was a great thing, and everybody remembers the first time they walked in there, who was at the door, who was playing, different things like that.
And Renee, I believe I've seen a previous interview when you referred to Clarissa Street as the Black Wall Street.
Yeah.
Can you? I know you're, I believe, 5th generation. Are you?
Yeah. Yep, we're right around there. I think I'm 4th
grandparent-
generation.
fourth
I'm
generation.
4th. 1, 2, 3. I am 4th generation Clarissa Street. Yes.
And Patricia, you're
I'm 4th as well.
4th generation. Oh, so tell me about the stories you've heard from your elders or your parents, grandparents.
Well, pretty much. George was being a little bit. His family owned a lot of the business on that street. So yeah, he was being very humble with understanding the business side of what we had, right? And the fact that those areas were uprooted, and when you go down Clarissa right now, you see 0 businesses. It's been zoned so you really can't have businesses there anymore. The generational wealth that I think about that was taken away is tremendous. The homes, the houses, the things that were, taken. Now, mind you, my parents did. My mom never talked about it like this. Our family is the Sprague family, so we were very well known in the area, and but they never talked about the generational wealth. It's just us who've now grown up and we understand what was taken. That we know what we could have had or what could have been, you know what I mean? So, but what they do, which what I love, is they talk about this, they have resistance through joy. They talk about it, how special it was and how happy they are at coming back. So I see that part of the resistance and how they do it. They're not gonna be kept down.
Yes.
And so I've come along to make sure that I continue that resistance in that way, but also add a little twist and let people know, hey, they stole this from us. How many other our generations would have gone to college, off of the mortgage, off of the money that we could have had from the homes that we owned.
Yeah. And Patricia, just your insight on.
So my family, I had an aunt that owned property on Clarissa Street. She owned a restaurant, a corner store, and she lived on Clarissa Street. But my uncle was one of those that was walking down the street and like, hey, let's do a reunion. That my uncle was one of the original, founders of the Clarissa Street Reunion. And that's how we remembered Clarissa Street. I didn't know very much. When I was a kid, I would go to the corner store, but didn't think much of it. Like, oh, my aunt owns a store, okay. But I didn't think much of it. I didn't understand the significance of it at the time until my uncle came involved with Clarissa Street Reunion, and I knew that I would have family coming from Georgia, family coming from all over on the third Saturday of August just to go to Clarissa Street. That's when I started to recognize or understand the history about, what it was that we had.
And why should this matter to the community? Why should preserving this history and this legacy matter?
Go ahead.
Yeah, well, at the time, we really didn't know what we had. That's how I think about it. And so when I look back, like Renee alluded to, my father owned a grocery store. My uncle owned a barbershop. My grandfather owned a big corner building that housed a bar, barbershop, restaurant, and a rooming house.
Or you were the people to know.
Yeah. So that's how I got to know a lot of people, because a lot of people who came to Rochester during the Great Migration, they stayed at my grandparents' place because there were like 14 rooms up top. They had a second and third floor. And so they would stay there, and I would get to know them because I lived around the corner, and we would always have to come and help clean up when school was out in the mornings before they opened up. So subsequently, and then the restaurant was open during that time. And at that time, you could buy a dinner, I remember, for $1. And my grandmother would always sell these people who came to town, mostly men before they got established here, a meal ticket. And the meal ticket was $5 a week. And you had to buy the meal ticket in order to stay here because my grandmother wanted to make sure you ate a meal every day. So it wasn't that she was trying to make any money, but then the restaurant connected to the bar. So, so that brought more business. So it was great. And then I had an uncle, like Renee said, I kind of didn't allude to it earlier. And then I had an uncle who owned the Gibson Hotel, which was the only black-owned hotel at the time in Rochester. So a lot of people, again, came to Rochester and they stayed there.
And you said something, George. You said we didn't know what we had at that time.
Right. We took it for granted. Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that, Renee or Patricia?
Well, I'm gonna turn it over to Renee, but I do want to say this. I think one of the reasons when you ask why was it important, I see so much now that young people don't recognize their significance. They don't have any connections to their neighborhoods or understanding how they're able to have or do what they can. So for me, the significance of Clarissa Street is because we need to know, we need to understand so that we can preserve what we have and do better. So my daughter's also part of Clarissa Street, and this year my grandson has a small part in the actual reunion. So I think about them like, wow, so we're starting really young. He's 5. So he's also going to start to understand the history and significance of Clarissa Street. But I know that we do it, and it's important because our young people need to know, and Renee fights really hard to make sure that young people understand that history.
Right, and to piggyback on that, what Patricia was saying is that we got involved with a group called Teen Empowerment.
Yeah.
And they wanted to know about Clarissa Street. The youth did not know anything, so we thought that when we got there that they wouldn't be interested. But the more we talked about it, and the first thing we asked them, have you ever been on Clarissa Street? Most of them said yes. Do you know what was there before it is how it looks today? They said no. And then when we told them the story, the seats started moving up. They started asking questions, and everything mushroomed from there.
Yeah, it was Black luxury at the time. So I want to talk about the Pythodd Room, and it's this legendary jazz club. What role did music play in defining Clarissa Street?
So if you didn't go to the Pythodd Room when you came to Rochester, you just did not make it. I think many people describe that once you make it to the Pythodd Room, you have made it. I had to pull it up because I always forget some of the artists that have gone through the Pythodd Room. Pee Wee Ellis, Ron Carter, Roy McCurdy, George Benson, Chuck and Gap Mangione, Stevie Wonder. Who am I missing, guys?
Wow.
So these people went through, have gone through the Pythodd Room. before they were even, known the way that they are now. So that's why the Pythodd Room was so important, because you had to go through there, and so people could know who you are.
Yeah, and most of the people who came through the Pythodd, the bands, they either came through Buffalo at the Pine Grill, and they came to Rochester to the Pythodd. Then after whoever came to the Pythodd first went to Buffalo to the Pine Grill. So all these well-known jazz groups were coming to Rochester at this time, between Rochester and Buffalo.
And the Pythodd Room, I know you mentioned, George, before you were able to get in, you listened to the music from the outside. Were you able to finally get in?
Oh, yeah.
And how was
I couldn't believe it. It's smoke filled. You smell everything. It was a dream come true.
And it was a room.
Yeah.
It was literally
it was someone's
room.
house, and he turned it into the Pythodd.
Yeah.
Like, he made his own. He had to remodel the whole living room to make sure, because you couldn't sit, right?
Yeah,
it was all
no,
standing room only, or you had to sit.
It was a big bar in the center, and there were seats all around in the stage.
Mm-hmm.
And the name Pythodd came from the Knights of Pythias, a fraternal organization, and the Odd Fellows. So when the first owner, his name was Stanley Thomas, he was a member of both groups. So they came up with the name Pythodd.
Let me tell you something.
Wow.
You guys are getting some history right now.
I'm
because
surprised.
I didn't even know that. Go ahead.
I didn't know that
Come on,
part.
Give me
Wow.
some more, George. I love it.
I'm surprised George family didn't own the
Pythodd,
Pythodd.
too. Can I say something before we go on?
Yes.
Because I do want to give homage to the original Clarissa Street Reunion Committee, and I just want to read off their names, and then if after that can you tell them the rest of like who we are, the Clarissa Street, the people that are on there, because if it wasn't for them starting, we wouldn't be here to continue it. Somebody has to start it, to be that spark. So Hubert Jeffries, which we called him Jiggy, he was the president and chair of entertainment. Ron Houston was the spokesperson and chair sponsorship committee. Sue Noel Boyd, she was sergeant at arms and the chair historical committee. Jock Smith Banks, co-treasurer and chair vendors committee. Helen Giblinson Brown was the co-treasurer and she chaired the T-shirt committee. Joyce Allen Wilson was the secretary. John Ashford was the chair security committee and the parade committee, because we used to have a parade. Now we have what we call a stroll, which is a jazz stroll. Joan Coles Howard, which should be a very well-known name. She was the chair of publicity and advertising committee. Alton Owens was the chair of the logistics, and Anna Terrell, she was on the committee, and Gloria Winston was also on the committee. So I just want to make sure that those names don't get lost in it, because we've lost some of them. We've lost their souls, but we have them here in our minds and hearts and all the time, because we have to be very thankful. And I'm very thankful for George. As you can see, he is a wealth of information, and I sit around and I try to soak it all up as much as I can. So thank you, George. Thank you for still being around for us.
And we know that music, I want to go back to music and its significance to Clarissa Street, and how does music continue to be a part of the reunion to this day, 27 years?
So we have typically Clarissa Street would have 3 stages. We would have an R&B stage, a gospel stage, and then the jazz stage. So we still continue those genres of music. This year we have 2 stages, but all of those genres of music you will hear on either stage, with a great significance on jazz, because that's definitely what Clarissa Street was about at the time. I think of our reunion definitely to bring people back together. But one of the individuals that's helping us with the music, he says he wants Clarissa Street to be the Black Jazz Festival, because there's so much history in music with that. But the music is a huge part. I mean, we try really hard to get local artists and artists outside of Rochester to come and grace our stages, but we really want people to to be able to enjoy themselves. You don't have to sit and listen to the music. You can walk around and connect with your friends and family, but the music will always be in the background of what it is that we do.
The Black Jazz Festival.
Yeah.
How does that sound to you, George?
Sounds good to me.
And I know we have Bryce. We have Bryce on the line.
All right.
He's on line 1. Hello, Bryce.
What's up, guys?
Hi, Bryce. Thank you for joining us. I know you probably just rolled over. Thank you for joining us,
No,
Bryce.
It's all good. It's all good.
And I just want to get your perspective, being a younger generation or the next generation of Clarissa Street. Can you tell us a bit about why being a part of this legacy is important to you as part of the next generation?
Yeah, I think it's amazing being able to be a descendant and being of the younger generation to be able to participate in this and like be able to keep our history. A lot of our history gets lost and throughout generations. Throughout generations, people aren't able to keep passing it on and passing it down. And I think it's amazing that being a young kid and a descendant, it's a different place in my heart personally.
Yeah.
And yeah.
And Bryce, do you see other young people connecting the way you do and with this musical legacy?
I think we're trying to do a good job of, involving the younger generation. We're getting on social media, like the Clarissa Street Reunion. We're getting on social media. We're trying to get it out to the young generation. Last year there was a lot of young kids at the reunion. Mm-hmm. So hopefully we get out and we keep getting these young kids on here and into our history.
And you touched on social media. I know he probably runs.
He does.
He just started. Him and my other son, they both are running the social media piece for us on Instagram and Facebook. We're working on our Facebook as well, but they're generating a lot of positivity. Bryce has gotten on there and done some he'll do a video instead of just a post. He'll talk to the people, and those have generated the most views on the Instagram. And if possible, please follow us. Is it okay for us to say that?
Go
All
right.
right.
Yeah.
It's Clarissa Street Reunion, right?
_585.
_585. Clarissa Street Reunion _585. We need to get those follows up. Get those follows up.
Why is it important to have a social media presence?
Do you want to ask us or want to ask Bryce? Bryce should let you guys know that one. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, is that a question for me?
Yes, go ahead, Bryce.
Social media nowadays is so important, like especially if you're trying to promote something. That's all that everybody's on every day. Like you're stuck to your phone, and if you're not promoting stuff on social media, like your phone is the new TV. If you're getting commercials on your TV, now these commercials have to go to your phone. And social media is that gateway for being able to promote and get these things out so people know about things. And it's the easiest way to do it nowadays because it's coming straight to your phone.
Yeah, it most certainly is because before that, we would have posters all over the city. We would go around and put them in the churches, put them in the schools, put them here, put them there. So now with social media and the new younger generation has come aboard, we stepped up our game a little bit.
Yeah. And Bryce, I want to ask you, like, what is something that you've heard about Clarissa Street from your parents or grandparents that really stuck with you about what Clarissa Street was?
That really stuck with me?
Yeah.
Well, this one's kind of like generic because like it's like I don't know, but I say it being our Black Wall Street. That's the one that sits with me the most because Black Wall Street is such a prominent Black community, or it was, and I just think that's amazing that we have that same, or we had that same thing here, and it's so prominent throughout the Black community. So, yeah.
And what is something that you instill in your son Renee when it comes to the legacy of Clarissa Street?
Well, I'd have to say for me, I started late. My mom is on the committee. She's very, very sick now, so she's no longer being able to handle her role. But when she was doing the interviews and stuff with teen empowerment, I really wasn't even into it. I was like, okay, Mom, yeah, that's good. But I remembered going to the reunion. I remembered going down there. I used to have a good time, but it wasn't every single year. It was almost like I was being pulled down there, early on. And then when I got older and was off to college, it wasn't something that I saw something that I should do. It was just like, yeah, okay, maybe, blah, blah, blah. So knowing what I know now, I let my boys know very early, hey, man, we have a prominent history here, and we need to make sure that we let everybody we can know about it, because if you know it, you can recreate it. If you understand that this is where we come from, you'll never think you're less than, because we are that Black Wall Street. We are that. We created that. We are a part of that. We can do it again. We can own it again. We can start all over. And they're the ones that can do it. So that's what I instill in my boys, and understanding this is history, but you create history as we move forward.
Yeah.
We're living it. We're living it right now.
Yeah. We're going to take a quick little break, and I want to go back and talk about this urban renewal, and what it did to Clarissa Street. And I want all the details, because remind you, I'm not from here. So let me know what it was and what it became. Stay with us. We're talking about Clarissa Street, a legacy, right here on WXXI.
Support for your public radio station comes from our members and from Bob Johnson Auto Group, proud supporter of Connections with Evan Dawson. Believing an informed public makes for a stronger community. BobJohnsonAutoGroup.com.
And we're back with WXXI Connections. This weekend is the Clarissa Street Reunion, the 27th annual. And we're talking about the Clarissa Street legacy right here on Connections. And joining me are Renee Dexter Long. She's the president of Clarissa Street Legacy. Patricia Mason Williams, the vice president. George Fontenette, an elder and the member of the finance committee. And joining us on the phone is Bryce Long, and Renee's son. He's representing the next generation to carry that legacy forward. And I wanted to touch on the urban renewal project and what it did to Clarissa Street. Renee, Patricia, George, can you talk about how urban renewal changed the neighborhood, what it was, and what exactly happened to the homes that were there?
Yeah, well, how it started when we heard, this is what I recollect, that my parents said that the highway was coming through Clarissa Street and that we have to sell our property. Mind you, we had a home on Favorite Street and a grocery store on the corner of Ford and True, which is around the corner from Clarissa Street. So we had to sell that, and they said if it doesn't sell, if we don't sell it, they'll make us sell it some kind of way. And so my parents said, well, I'm just using my example, that they decided to rent the property out before urban renewal came through and move to Louisiana. So we were uprooted from Clarissa Street, Troop Street area, and my family went back to Louisiana. Now, my grandparents, who had a place on Clarissa Street also, which I mentioned earlier, they had to relocate. My grandfather had 14 brothers and sisters.
Wow.
11 of the 14 lived in that area. They all owned homes, so every one of them had to move. So that created, because we could walk to our relatives' homes at that time. We didn't have to get in the car and travel like we do today. So everybody was near each other. So they took all that, and they said it was urban renewal, but we changed that to we were uprooted, urban uprooting, you might as well say. And but with that being said, a lot of my friends who lived in that area, the same thing happened to them. So one of the things that we talked about is that they tore down the Pythodd, they tore down different homes in the area, but they left the Flying Squirrel, which was the Elks, and they left Chef's Paradise. So why did you tear down the Pythodd? So they were picking different places where they left. So there were other homes down there. Mind you, which I said earlier, that the highway was coming through. But the highway came through the other end of Clarissa Street. It didn't affect the whole part of Clarissa Street. But the only thing that I could gather in my mind is that they had a plan and didn't tell us the plan. And so that's why you see what there is today. Because Corn Hill is on the other side of Clarissa Street, on the north side of Clarissa Street. And Corn Hill was reestablished. They refurbished all those homes in Corn Hill, and now you see what they got. Clarissa Street, it took about 10 years before they started rebuilding in that area. And the first building that they built was on Ford Street called the Dobson Apartments, a high-rise with people on top of people, again. But that was about 10 years after they tore everything down. I was in the Army, and I was in Vietnam, and Clarissa Street looked like a war zone for years. But now, if you go through there now, it's beautiful. Down Troop Street, down in different streets. But at the time, they didn't have nothing down there. So that's when the reunion came about, and they started letting people know what was there, especially people like you, for instance, who are from out of town, didn't know what was there. Yeah. Because you drive down there today and see what you see. If we weren't here to tell the story, you wouldn't know.
Yeah. So, can I don't know if you can recall what the mood was like then when that happened.
Well, at our exhibit, Clarissa Uprooted, they have some films that we have up there. And that tells a story. They interviewed people, and they were telling their stories, why they didn't want to leave. Matter of fact, one lady family on Clarissa Street, the Williams family, I can say their name, and they had like 10 children, but they were all kind of older at the time, but there was still about 4 or 5 children left. And the mother was so upset that they took the property that she had a heart attack and died. Yeah. But I didn't know that she had died from a heart attack. I knew she died, but her daughter told me this, that she was so heartbroken.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I did watch a little snippet of the archives and people going through the documents and describing what Clarissa Street was, from which point to which point, and how much of it was destroyed. And it was gut-wrenching.
Significant,
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. So, the way I say it, if I were to set the picture for you, if living right now, just think about, where you live. If you live in a home or a townhouse, just think about your neighborhood. If you live in an apartment complex, just think about how many people live in that complex. Upwards of 800 families were uprooted. 800 families. And think about what George just said. That one family had 10 members. And if we think back to the time frame that we're speaking of, which Clarissa Street was considered the third ward. It is the third ward because Rochester's broken up into wards. So you get the third ward, 19th ward, 7th ward. So the two wards, or the areas that Black people were really welcomed in that could live, were the third ward, which is where Clarissa Street was, and it's still there, but where it was in that realm, and the 7th ward. So imagine trying to take 800 families and just trying to force them into the 7th ward. It wasn't going to happen. There wasn't enough space, right? So what happened to all of those families? What happened to those 800 people? So I'm just trying to get you to feel what that would have felt like. They had nowhere to go. Where were they going to go? So I'm sure there was some despair. I'm sure there was some, a lot of stress. I couldn't imagine not knowing where I was going to go. My grandparents, it was my great grandparents' home. They owned a double, and they were on Clarendon Street, and it is also in the exhibit. It's one of the books that they found, and they have the picture, and they have what the house was they gave them money for it because it was under eminent domain. So they gave them, I think, like $4,000 for a double. Right now, we had a realtor come in and appraise what it would be worth right now, sitting there as it was. It would be worth over $300,000, between $300,000 and $400,000. So just imagine how much they lost by getting $4,000 to try to go and find another home in a place where they're not welcomed, number one, because you're not going to fit anywhere else. The 19th ward did allow some. And so some people were able to move into the 19th ward, but it was a stretch. Sometimes they would have to actually hire a friend that was Caucasian, and let them go in and be the face so that they could then live there. So to me, I want you to feel what that would have been like, instead of just it being, hey, yeah, they got uprooted. No. 800 families being taken and told they had to leave.
And so, Patricia, I don't know if you want to add to this. What do you know about the urban renewal and what it did to this
pretty much
neighborhood?
exactly the way Renee explained it. But again, because I was younger at the time, even when I was a teenager going to Clarissa Street, I didn't understand. So as I got older, that's when I was like, oh, I get it. I see it differently now, and I think that's why it's important for us to understand, our history. So we have to remember the things that have been done to us. We have to remember where we've come from and what we're striving to do with our young people, because we want our young people to have just as much pride in where they are, what they're trying to do, their history, even in their neighborhoods now. But it's a sad thing to think about. And even when we drive down Clarissa Street, just like George said, you drive down Clarissa Street, of all those businesses, only 2 of them are there. And he talks about what's the Clarissa Room now. Actually, my family purchased that building. They're not allowed to do anything with the building. They only want it to be residential. So their thought was, we'll open up, a small sports bar. We'll put in Clarissa Street history, pictures and things like that, so that they can also pay homage to our family in Clarissa Street. And they're not allowed to, because now that's only zoned as residential. But it's it was a bar. It's always been a bar.
Yeah.
They purchased it with thinking that they can do that. They cannot. So now it's back on the market for sale because there's nothing they can do with it. And I think it was designed that way. I still think it's designed that way.
So those are things we have to continue to fight. You got to fight these zoning laws, and that's what that'll be the next fight. As a group, as a community, to say, hey, these are the things we want in the community, and where can we place them? Since these were taken away, what can we do here? I mean, they've put other, I think, prominence to another part of that area, and allow them to have the businesses on the other side. But down there, I mean, when you think about it, there are no grocery stores in the city anymore.
Yeah.
Where do people go? Like even where do you go to the corner store? You got to go all the way down to the other side. You should be able to have something there for the people in the community. But I don't necessarily know if it's going to be a fight, but it's a conversation to have about, what can we do to help this place, again, be a little thriving area where African Americans can also still go here and then also see some of the history in those places.
Yeah. And you said 800 families.
Yes, ma'am.
So I know some went to the 19th ward. Where do we know what happened to these 800 families?
I haven't tracked down all 800, but I do know some. You just think about it. Some of them probably were homeless. Some of them probably ended up living with other family members in other parts. So maybe they went to the 7th ward. I know my family did get another double in the 19th ward. And so because we had that, the families could stay together, upstairs, downstairs, and you kind of scrunched in until you raised enough money as a family to get another home.
Yeah,
And
but that was during the what you would characterize as the white flight. Because as black people started moving in to the 19th ward, that's when the white folks started moving out to Gates, Brighton, Henrietta, different close suburbs.
Yeah.
So, because when I was a kid growing up, our high school was on Bronson Avenue and Epworth Street, which is near Genesee Street. But we never went across Genesee Street because there wasn't nothing over there for us. Mm-hmm. They had a YMCA that we went to, but other than that, it was all white. So when Renee said what happened to the people, that's where they started going to. Even my grandmother moved on Genesee Street because my grandfather had passed away, and I lived with her because she was by herself. But that's where the flight came in, and where people were going.
Mm-hmm. And my family moved on. It's called Samuel McCree Way now, but was that
Bronson Avenue?
It was Bronson Avenue. That she owned property on Clarissa Street. She ended up moving to a double on Bronson Avenue. Yeah. So it's interesting when you said that. I was like, oh yeah, she did live in a double.
Yeah, yeah.
So how do we take what I assume is some form of resentment, right, and create this celebration?
Well, again, I said they show their resistance with their joy. And I think you asked me a question earlier, and I think I'm showing or trying to show my boys resilience, right? We're going to show how we're going to fight back with our resilience, right? We don't have to be angry, because angry gets you nowhere. Let's show how resilient we are, how strong we are, and how we're going to now show our history, make sure everybody knows it, and then where do we take it from there? You know, the young people are the next minds. They're going to figure out where we go. We're just giving them the information. All right, guys, now you guys take us to the next level, okay? Here you have it. Use social media. You use whatever you have to help us bring this to the next generation and keep it moving forward.
Yeah, and we've been having tours of Clarissa Street. Like Renee, for instance, brought, because she teaches at Rush Henrietta, she brought a class from Rush Henrietta down on Clarissa Street. Those students were so amazed when we told them the story, and then we had the pictures, and we walked down the street and showed them the pictures of what was here, what was there, you know, so they were amazed. And then come to find out, one of the students' grandparents lived in the area, and they didn't know that until, and then she hurried up and got on the phone, Mommy, Grandma, guess who's here? and then I talked to her, you know, but if we didn't have this to educate them, they wouldn't know what was there.
And they didn't even know that they had the connection until little things came up. She's like, I think my grandparents lived here, and called her, you know? So we have to help them see the connection. You have to help them see how it is important to them. And when we take them through the exhibit, number one, and then also a tour of Clarissa Street, it is amazing how their minds and their eyes open up and what they want to be. They want to be a part of it. They want to help. They want to. And so I think it's just getting that information to the youth and getting them involved, and they'll do something as beautiful as what they did with the Uprooted exhibit. Right. We actually have inside of the exhibit a group called Youth Build created a replica of the Pythodd. So we have that. The stage is in there, right, where people can perform. Like it's amazing. So that's one of the that's one of the things we're gonna move to, is being able to have like a little coffee time in there where young people can perform on that stage and people can come in and see that stuff happen. So it's all about getting people to know it, getting in there, and once we do, I'm gonna say, if I get you in there, you're gonna want to help too. You're like, how can I be a part of this? Renee, let me get in here. That's right.
Yeah. And then we also had, beside high school students, we had colleges. Roberts Wesleyan came through Clarissa Street. RIT came through on tours that we had to take them through. We had a group who came here from Chicago, wanted to tour. They heard about it, so we took them on a tour. Her mother, Kathy, and myself. We led the tour, and they were amazed at what we showed them.
Yeah, and I want to have Bryce join back on this conversation. Bryce, what have you learned from elders like George and your grandmother
about Clarissa Street specifically?
Yeah, so just living in that time.
Really not much more than what they've already said. They've told me those stories
countless times.
Yeah, I don't really have anything else other than what they went over. I'm sorry.
and I know we spoke a lot about the next generation keeping this moving forward. Other than social media, are there any other ideas that I don't want you to speak on behalf of the entire next generation, but what are some of the things that you're hoping to do to keep this legacy moving forward?
Just keep the young kids involved as possible. Like, since I'm in a young generation now, I'm like more able to reach them rather than like the older people. Like, it's harder for older people to be able to make a bridge between elders and kids. Yeah. And I think I can kind of be that bridge.
Nice. I love that, Bryce. Now, 27 years. Started off in 96. How has it grown since then? How has the reunion, Clarissa Street Reunion, grown since 96?
Well, I could say it's grown. Like Renee alluded to earlier, a lot of the original members of the committee have passed away. And with that being said, a lot of people who were residents of that area have passed away. Now their children and grandchildren are coming down, and then we have a wall of pictures of old reunions, old residents of Clarissa Street, different pictures that we have on display, and that is always the big drawing point because people crowd around there. And well, now people take pictures, but when we first started off, they were cutting the pictures away and taking them home with them.
Oh, there's my uncle.
Right.
That's the guilty laugh.
Yeah. And so now when everybody has a phone, you can see them snapping pictures of their ancestors, more or less. Yeah.
And we actually have a phone call I want to get to before our lines close. We have Hoover from Pittsford that wants to make a comment. Hoover, are you on the line?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes. You like to join in on our conversation here about Clarissa Street?
It's wonderful. What a great conversation. When I was younger, I lived on Eagle Street and also on Troop Street. And when I was 17, I guess I was illegally in. If nobody asked me for ID, I said, I'll have a standard dry ale. And they said, okay. It's like 50 cents. And then and I got a little bit older, then I knew the guy who ran Chef's Paradise. I go in there to sit and talk to him during the day sometimes. But he was a good guy. Clarissa Street, for what it was at the time, it was a great thing. It was cultural. It was an economic boom time for the area. And then, the business went under, and I haven't been, I drove down there a couple of weeks ago, but I moved away from Rochester for 20 years. I came back, I went through my old neighborhoods to see what was going on, and had fond memories of the Pythodd on the corner of Troop and Clarissa Street, baby.
Yes, sir.
Right.
I love it.
And Eagle Street was right around the corner.
Yeah. Well, I hope you come on down to the reunion so that you can get a piece or a slice of your childhood, because we're going to be having a bright time. When I tell you the music is going to be wonderful, and we won't have those drinks for you though. You can get a lemonade from the lemonade stand, but we're not going to get the dry ale. You said.
Yeah.
But when's the festival? I want to come.
The reunion is August 23rd,
Okay,
which is this Saturday, and we start. All the festivities really start at 11. If you come around 10:30, you'll see our stroll, which is the jazz. It's almost like a New Orleans stroll. We just walking on down to the main stage. So yeah, come on down. Enjoy. My advice would be bring a lawn chair so that you can sit down and enjoy the music. If you want to get up and walk with it, you certainly can. But you're going to want to sit down, relax, and enjoy yourself.
Do you remember Howard Coles?
Oh,
Yes.
Howard Coles. He was an old friend of mine. I was much younger than him, but he put his arm around me. He goes, "Son, I want to tell you something." And I would say, "Yes, sir." And he would tell me all these stories.
Yes.
Howard's daughter Joan was on the committee when they first started.
Yep.
And Joan is still around.
Yep.
All right. Yeah, you remember Emmett Porter?
Oh yeah, I remember Emmett.
Yeah.
Like we're having a reunion right here.
Exactly.
It's starting already.
Yeah, Emmett owned a construction company.
Yeah, Emmett was a good friend of mine.
Okay.
He always called me by the wrong first name, but I said, I'm not gonna tell him.
And this is the point of the reunion, right?
Yes.
To share these memories,
Yes.
right? The good times,
Absolutely.
where when Clarissa Street was thriving. So, Renee, I want you to tell us again about Saturday and the time, what to expect, the entertainment.
Excellent. Well, we'll get to the entertainment, but when you ask the question about how has it changed, I do want to say this as far as the reunion. This year we have the most, at least in our inception. So we started 2025. We started with the 25th annual. That's the one we started with. And we have 57 vendors for the street.
Wow.
And that is a lot for us. And we are so happy and we're so excited. We got to get a lot of people down there so that you can enjoy the crafts, food vendors. We've got informational tables. It's going to be a great, great time. So that was an important piece that I wanted you to know. And if you're interested in vending next year, we'll make sure you guys get that information. Go to our website. But we want to expand that. I hate to say it, but I want to compare eventually to what Cornhill does. Cornhill takes up the whole, multiple blocks. And I don't see Clarissa Street not being able to do that. I think we certainly can. So my idea is trying to make that thing grow. Our entertainment lineup is phenomenal. We have a person that helps with the entertainment, and that's Grand Tone. And we also have Mr. Nate Rawls. They are on our entertainment committee. Another elder, Janie Anderson, also. She's really responsible for a lot of the gospel that we get. But this year, as we said, we kind of combine them, which is really good because once you sit down, instead of you only hearing one genre, you get to hear it all.
Yes.
You know, and then we get to allow people to learn instead of just deciding, hey, I'm going to stay down here at the R&B stage. No, let's mingle. Let's get to know the elders. Let's sit and learn some jazz. So I'm going to turn it over to Patricia. Let her tell her what that beautiful lineup looks like.
So for our lineup, we have MIDI and the Followers, Freelance, and then we have Teen Empowerment, which is going to do some poetry and some history. We have the Indigo Breeze Band, Magnetic Flow. I always mess his name up. Quavis Walker, which is a gospel rap.
Yeah.
We have Robert Ricks and kids doing some spoken word. Deborah Cox, Jemiah, who is also a poet. We have Coach Pinky and the Pink Steppers, Oblivion, Jamise Graham, but our headliner is Will Holton, and before that we'll have Joe Beard.
Ooh, and what
and
time?
There's some more I missed.
And what time
11
frame?
a.m. to 7 p.m., Saturday the 23rd.
Saturday the 23rd.
Come
from
down at
11 a.m.
10:30
to
though for the
7
stroll.
p.m. 10:30, the stroll starts. Thank you to my guests for talking with me about Clarissa Street's legacy. It's been a very powerful conversation, and I pray a great turnout for your event on a Saturday. The 27th annual Clarissa Street Reunion, Saturday, August 23rd from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. Thank you guys for joining me on
Thank you.
WXXI
Thank you.
Connections.
Thank you for
You're
inviting us.
wonderful.
Thank you.
This program is a production of WXXI Public Radio. The views expressed do not necessarily represent those of this station, its staff, management, or underwriters. The broadcast is meant for the private use of our audience. Any rebroadcast or use in another medium without expressed written consent of WXXI is strictly prohibited. Connections with Evan Dawson is available as a podcast. Just click on the Connections link at WXXInews.org.